But we begin in Russia. Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer says he will meet with President Putin in Moscow on Monday. CBS News translated the chancellor's announcement on Twitter. "We are militarily neutral," he writes, "but have a clear position on the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. It must stop. Humanitarian corridors are needed, ceasefire, and full investigation of war crimes." The chancellor also said that he informed Ukraine's President Zelensky and Austria's European partners about the meeting. This comes as Russian forces increase attacks in eastern Ukraine. The region is taking heavy shelling, and officials say last week's missile strike on civilians at a train station killed at least 57 people. Now Ukrainians are bracing for an even bigger offensive. Ukraine says Russian forces are pushing towards Ukraine's second largest city, Kyiv. That's less than 30 miles from the Russian border. In Moscow, Russian President Putin has named a new leader for the Kremlin's invasion. General Alexander Debora is now in charge after Russian forces failed to capture Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv. And as both countries gear up for a fight, Ukraine is getting some new assistance to help defend itself. Slovakia has transferred a Soviet-era structure called an S-300 missile defense system to Ukraine. In turn, the U.S. is repositioning a Patriot missile system to Slovakia. Meanwhile, in Poland, a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers met with U.S. armed forces and several Polish officials on Sunday. The group includes House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who released a statement writing, quote, "Our visit today should serve as a powerful message to Putin that we condemn his unprovoked attacks. Evil cannot win." Joining me now from Kyiv is CBS News foreign correspondent Debora Patta. Hello, Debora. So Ukraine is recovering from devastating attacks across the country. Now the fighting is moving east. Tell us what's in store for eastern Ukraine.
Well, we already know satellite imagery has pinpointed an 8-mile Russian convoy of hundreds of armored vehicles moving south. This is heavy artillery. And we also know that untold misery has been unleashed in that region, including cities like Mariupol, where much of it has been destroyed. One resident describing it as worse than hell, and trapped there, 100,000 are still inside without food, water, and electricity. So you imagine on top of that, more fighting, more shelling. Civilian resistance really has been the inspiring story of this invasion, but they've paid a heavy price with intense shelling and that missile attack you referred to on Friday at a known civilian hub. Civilians trying to flee the violence on the advice of the government gathered at this rail station, and with that missile strike, over 50 were left dead. We've seen the devastation in the cities liberated here around Kyiv. Worse still, the bodies of executed civilians found in Bucha, the mass graves, and the horrific allegations of rape, torture, and the indiscriminate killing of civilians that have been reported. More than 6 weeks have passed, and it's already been horrific. It's hard to imagine what new horrors await the people of this country in the east.
I want to ask you about that specifically, Debora. It's so hard seeing, in particular, that last image of a child's toy covered in blood and seeing how devastating this invasion has been already. And now we know that President Putin is nominating a new general for the invasion, Dvornikov. Tell us what we know about him and what this means in terms of Russian strategy.
Well, Alexander Dvornikov is the general, as you correctly point out, at the helm now of this battle. He's accused of war crimes in Syria. And you'll remember he's accused of flattening civilian neighborhoods. You remember what that destruction looked like. We've already seen the destruction here around Kyiv. I mean, it's really destruction on an industrial scale in liberated towns, apocalyptic scenes of apartment buildings that have been leveled, gaping holes in structures. And clearly he's been brought in because there has been a flagging offensive from the Russians. They lost the battles around Kyiv. They failed to advance on Kyiv. They want somebody at the helm who's going to be tough and, in Putin's eyes, will get the job he wants done. It is very worrying indeed.
And this happens with a new general who is already accused of war crimes in Syria. Russia's already been accused of war crimes in Ukraine. if our viewers need a refresher, tell us what are some of the war crimes that are already something that the international community is investigating at this point, and should we expect that things are going to even become more horrific, apocalyptic, to use your word, given General Dvornikov's appointment?
Well, the images, that have been broadcast around the world are disturbing, and they should disturb us. In Bucha, the streets are littered with Russian atrocities. Civilians with their hands bound who have been executed with a shot to the head. In one basement, people were forced to crouch down, their hands bowed, facing the wall. Again, they were executed. We ourselves saw a man who it seemed that he'd been blindfolded, his hands were tied behind his back, and he'd been shot in the head. Then there are the mass graves, not one, but several, bodies piled up on each other. And also that unspoken crime, rape, that's been used as a weapon of war. Stories of a mother watching as she was tied to a chair as her 12-year-old son was raped. A child watching his mother being raped, even as she begged that he be taken to another room. Women who offered to take the place of their younger sisters as Russian soldiers come in and attempt to take them. So really, really horrific stories that are surfacing here. The kind of things that we often don't hear about because there isn't the graphic visual evidence. Call centers, there's a hotline that's been set up where crimes and allegations of crimes can be reported. It's received over 15,000 calls in one day. It's overwhelmed. And over 5,000 cases have already been registered with the Prosecutor General.
Deborah, I know it is so horrific to discuss those things, and in some cases it's easier to talk about the number of people who were just executed than the horror, the graphic horror of those other war crimes, including those rapes. President, so I want to also just applaud you for being really honest about what is happening there. And even though it's difficult for us to have those types of conversations in polite society. President Zelensky met with some foreign leaders in Kyiv on Saturday. Does it seem like he's going to be getting more supports? How did those talks go?
Well, perhaps the most important and the most symbolic was when UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a surprise visit to the capital, and those images of the Prime Minister walking the streets of Kyiv with Volodymyr Zelensky, that would have been unimaginable a few weeks back. And I guess is really a sign and a show that the capital, at least, is firmly back in Ukrainian hands. This was a show of solidarity from Johnson. He came, though, also pledging more military aid to Ukraine, and also his outrage, basically accusing Putin of war crimes. So we've certainly seen a lot of support, a lot of military equipment being given to Ukraine. But where that goes in terms of the future of this country and stopping the war, there hasn't been much progress there.
All right, Deborah, there in Kyiv, thank you so much.